In my last video, we talked about the Master Lock number 140, and I gave you some tips and tricks on how to get that one open. This is the Master Lock number 150, and it is an entirely different beast than the 140. It does have one more pin, and you might think that that's not a lot, but when it comes to picking locks, one more pin is such a big difference. I'm going to go over different types of feedback that you're going to feel with spool pins. I'm going to go over a little trick to help you locate the pins inside this lock, and ultimately I want to show you how to pick it. So let's get into it. Master Lock gives this a 5 out of 10 security level. It is suggested to use on sheds, gates, and storage lockers. It's cut resistant, hardened steel shackle, double locking levers for superior pry resistance, and a 5-pin cylinder for maximum pick resistance. For this lock, I recommend you use a flat-tipped standard hook if you can. There is a simple way to mark your pick so that you can locate the pins way easier inside of your lock. If you're having trouble just finding them and landing on them, or setting some of the pins, especially since this one has spool pins and it might be a little bit more difficult for you to pick, you can always mark your pick to show you where the pins are. What you need for this is just the key, you need your pick, and you need some type of marker. I prefer just a Sharpie. Any color's fine as long as it shows up on your pick. And when you take a look at the key and how it goes into the lock, you can see that when you put the key in, it goes all the way up to this point right here, which is called the shoulder of the key. So we're going to have to mark the pick right where it sits at the shoulder of the key. So what you're going to do is take your pick and find where the 5th pin is, and then you're just going to kind of hold it in place, and then you're going to take your Sharpie and mark your pick. So we're just going to mark it, and then we're going to do the same for the 4th pin, 3rd pin, 2nd pin, and your 1st pin. Now you've got a little bit of a reference point on your pick. When you put your pick inside of your lock, you know that when you see that you're on a mark, you know that you're on that pin. Using this 3D model of a lock from 3D Locksport, I want to show you what happens inside when you are actually on a spool pin. Now, you can start your picking process depending on the bitting of your key and how long your key pins are. You could either be at the top of the spool pin at the shear line, the middle of the spool pin at the shear line, or the bottom of the spool pin at the shear line. If you are at the top or the bottom, your feedback is going to feel like you were just picking a standard pin, so nothing will be different. You're just going to feel like it's a regular binding pin and you're going to pick it. Then you might fall into something called a false set, and this is what a false set looks like. It kind of rotates and you think for a second that you've got it open, but it just stops. And this is why. Your spool pin is caught right at the middle there, and it's not yet done being picked. You still have to bring the entire bottom up over the shear line in order to open the lock. The feedback you're going to feel when you press up on a key pin where there's a spool pin at the middle, you're going to feel what's called counter rotation. And counter rotation is basically when you're pushing up on the key pin and it kind of rotates in the opposite direction that you're tensioning. You can almost feel your tensioner push the other way. And this is exactly what that feeling is from. It's because you're in the middle of a spool pin and you need to get the bottom of the spool pin up over the shear line, and it's going to counter rotate. And what you're going to have to do is just continue to push up on that pin until you get that up over the shear line, and then your lock will open. Unless you have more spool pins, in which case that pin will set and the next one will bind and you'll be able to pick that one. Tensioning this lock, I recommend top of keyway tension like I always do. I think it's important that you learn top of keyway tension before you're learning spool pins. So at this point, if you've tried the Master 140 and you've learned how to use top of keyway tension, then you should be pretty good at it for this lock. But I recommend top of keyway tension, and the smaller end of your flat bar goes into the top of the keyway there. And you want it to be as tight fitting as possible. So if yours is a little bit too loose, you need to find a better tensioner that's going to be tighter fitting, especially if you're dealing with spool pins, because all that back and forth with the counter rotation can cause this tensioner to go flying out of here, and it's really, really annoying because if you're just learning it, it's probably going to fly out of here anyway. So adding more things that are going to make it fly out is just not going to be fun. Okay, so we're going to give just enough tension to turn the core and then kind of just hold it in place there. Now, tensioning your lock is going to be different for every lock, so you may have to use a little more tension in some places. You may have to use a little less. It may vary throughout your picking process. Now, I'm going to try to talk you through what I'm doing and what's going on inside this lock. So I'm just going to go in and feel for anything binding and try to give it a small click. Number 1 and 2 were binding. Three, 4, nothing else. Back to the front. Number 1's binding again. Okay, there we go. That was number 1, number 2. So now I'm on number 3. That's giving me some counter rotation. I'm going to give it a click. All right. Number 4, number 5. All right, number 5 was binding and gave me a little click. Nothing on 1. Nothing on 2, 3, 4. Counter rotating, but it's not wanting to set. This is what I found with this lock. Some of these pins just don't want to go. All right, and number 5 gave me a little bit of a counter rotation, and I set that one. Now coming back to the front, nothing on 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. All right, so I'm missing something somewhere. Let's try some more. 2. All right, I think that was something with number 3 there. And number 5 now is counter rotating. Okay, got a bit of a click out of it, but it doesn't feel like it fell back into the deep false set or open. So something is amiss. There it is, number 3. All right, so number 3 dropped there at the end when I clicked in number 5. So number 3 kind of dropped, and once I got back on top of it and was able to click it, I was able to get this pin to set. Now, guys, I can honestly say this is a really annoying lock. The pins don't like to move. Yeah, it was just a really annoying lock. So I'm going to say that if you've picked the number 104, I would not suggest the 105 next. This one I would save for after you've done a couple of locks with spool pins in them. I do hope I gave you a good explanation on this one. Please remember that all the tools I used in this video, both of these are actually from Covert Instruments, and I'll leave a link to their beginner's pick set in the description of this video. It is a nice set. If you do like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for some more Locksport fun. Take care.